Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program from our studios in Jerusalem, bringing you news and interviews from the land of Israel. I'm here with my wife, Natalie Blackham. Great to have you with us, Nat. Normally you're not here or I'm not here because we have a guest, but we're both together today. Thank you so much for your support. It's because of your support that we're able to do this program today, and we really appreciate that. Well, in the Jerusalem Post, we're doing a news feature because this is a Israel First update. And in the Jerusalem Post headlines, it says, Cabinet chooses ceasefire over war with Hamas. Cabinet chooses ceasefire over war with Hamas. An unofficial ceasefire went into effect recently following the barrage of 500 rockets and mortars from Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Whether the ceasefire will remain in place, one Israeli official says, is dependent on what happens on the ground. An emergency security cabinet meeting was held where ministers heard briefings from Israeli military and intelligence officials who were all against widening the Israeli military response, in other words, having a war in Gaza, and rejected a full-fledged prolonged military campaign. This is despite this huge rocket attack on Gaza on the south of Israel, which even went as far as the Dead Sea and the Hebron Hills, which are not so far away from here. Their position, the position of the military experts, was backed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has made it clear that he wants to avoid a war in Gaza. Four ministers voiced opposition to a ceasefire, including Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, who, because of the ceasefire, has resigned from his post. But not everybody agrees with the ceasefire. And in the same newspaper, it says, South protests Gaza deal, fearing more of the same. South protests Gaza deal, fearing more of the same. And you can see the picture there is actually of the protests in the south of Israel, in the Sderot area, where they've been having missile attacks and buildings destroyed, including a bakery, people injured with shrapnel. Fortunately, nobody was killed, but I mean, 500 rockets is the most they've ever had.
In one day. I mean, in 24 hours.
Right.
In 24 hours. Yeah.
And the southern Israeli citizens recently carried out protests against the Gaza against the Gaza ceasefire, burning tires and blocking roads in Sderot and near Am. They protested against the ceasefire that has been agreed by Israel and Hamas after suffering a massive rocket attack from Gaza, causing prolonged stays in bomb shelters, buildings destroyed and people being injured, as well, of course, the PTSD, all sorts of issues. The residents protested the inaction, in their opinion, of the Israeli government against the Hamas terrorists, saying that the ceasefire is simply letting more of this happen to them, letting more terrorist attacks from Gaza, and that they are fed up to be holed up in bomb shelters on a regular basis.
But we have to see, there was also a miracle. I was reading a story of a man, I don't know if you read this story, a man wanted to stay where he was because he's like fed up to have to run all the time. And suddenly he thought, oh, my mother is in the other house and I need to look after her because she's by herself. So he runs to her and they go to the bomb shelter together. And then they are coming back up and his house is totally destroyed. So he was saying, I honor my parents, and suddenly I'm saved by that. So it was really touching to see that. And there was the other story also, if you remember, there was like a bus who was full of soldiers. The soldiers were singing in the bus. They get out of the bus, everybody was dispatched, and suddenly there was a missile, a guided missile, who just go into the bus. The bus was totally destroyed. And the driver, was, I think, an Arab driver, and he said, God loves Israel and his people, and like this is a big miracle. Like they will have, I think it was about 50 soldiers, and they will have been like, they would have been dead.
Right, but this is not a normal way of living. That missiles can hit a bus and blow a bus up.
But it's amazing to see so many stories, and you hear stories. There was terrible thing that happening, but in the midst of all of that, you can see God's hands, trying to protect as much as possible. But of course, it's not a normal life, and we know because even saying that even here we here, I have on my telephone an app who say when there is a red alert. And this time I was very disturbed more than usually. Usually I'm like, I know, but like this time it really touched me like inside. And I wanted to cry for a while. And I was like, hey, come on, But I was like, well, you imagine when you are there all the time, we know that it's short range. So it's not where we are. Us, if they were doing it from Gaza, it would be long range. And it's okay. But you can imagine the people over there. But one of the things, maybe I pick up these things because like Lieberman is gone, the defense minister, because Netanyahu and the cabinet was saying, no, we don't want to carry on an escalation with Gaza, which is bad for the people in the south, but they are looking at the big picture.
Which brings me on to my next story, Natalie.
Okay.
You kind of led into it, really. But yeah, I mean, it's not at first, you need to know that it's not a normal way of life to have missiles fired, to have to live in a bomb shelter. No, first of all, not everybody has a bomb shelter, so then you have to share the neighbours, so you all have to sit in the bomb shelter. Now, if there's missiles going off all the time, it means you're stuck in the bomb shelter all night. So you have to sleep in there. Very often you have to eat in the bomb shelter. And it means that you're confined. It means, by the way, that you can't do your normal work, that people are late for work and all sorts of things.
But
so
like when
it's not a normal way for the people in the south of Israel to live.
And when you are grown up, there is a certain resilience that you have. But when you are children, it's like, is it going forever? So is the kids they go to the pee in the bed. There is a lot of psychological.
The psychotrauma, really, which you were talking about on the program with Miriam from United Hezbollah. The Jerusalem Post, again, we're looking at the newspaper, and it's got IDF uncovers Hezbollah post 1 kilometer from the border. Now, Natalie was just about to go on to this, and why is it so relevant to what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in the north of Israel? Well, the Israeli army discovered Hezbollah post. Hezbollah is a terror group that's operating. You have the Hamas terror group who's operating in Gaza in the south, and then in the north you have the Hezbollah terrorist group who are operating in Lebanon and in Syria, I believe. And the Israeli army has accused this terrorist group of Hezbollah of once again violating United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, which basically gives a buffer zone between the Lebanon/Syria border and Israel. And you're not meant to have any military operations inside this buffer zone. And what's happened is that the Hezbollah terrorist group have been setting up a post, a watch post, which was near the kibbutz Misgav Am, about 1 kilometer from the border, under the pretext of this fictitious environmental NGO called Green Without Borders, so a complete ruse to try and do spying onto Israel. The IDF said it was the 6th such outpost discovered in the past couple of years. Similar to those uncovered last year, this is also acted as a forward observation post to gather information on intelligence information on Israeli troops. So,
so they know when they are passing, they know what they are doing.
The strength of the Israeli forces at the border. They know intelligence information, which you say, well, why is that so important? Well, if there's an attack, with a missile attack, they can give the details to the people who are firing the missiles. And that leads us on to Natalie, because why is the north of Israel so relevant to what's been happening in Gaza?
That's it, because right now the war cabinet and Netanyahu are saying, no, we don't want to go into Gaza in the south, because we need also to know that what's happening, if we do something there, the people from Hezbollah are saying, we're coming to help our brothers, and so it's going to escalate. And so when you see that, you have to think also Hezbollah has 60,000 soldiers. And they are not just terrorists, but they are really an army. Because Gaza, they will have a lot of fractions, different terrorist groups. But in Hezbollah is more an army. So they are big. And Hezbollah is having a lot of money from Iran. So Iran is not directly in Lebanon, but Iran is helping Hezbollah, and they are very happy to give them money. They are happy to give them missiles. Now we know that
they're sort of in the north, because Iran sends advisors. There are Iranian troops there, but they're not officially there.
That's it. Yes, they're not officially there. But also we need to know that because of all the things that are happening in Syria, there is also some people, like you say, Hezbollah also in Syria, and Iran is giving them some money and weapons, because the weapons were made usually in Iran. Now, like Israel is quite often, we hear some stories, they bombed something in Syria, and it's because it was like army and weapons were coming into Lebanon. So Israel always are proactive, trying to get them before they are going to fight them on them. Israel doesn't want Hezbollah starting to do something, because now they have a lot of missiles. Now, you had the first Lebanon war and then the second Lebanon war, and like Israel went to help because it was already with Hezbollah. At that time, they had 10,000 missiles who went onto Israel during this war, okay? Now they have, let me find exactly to make sure that, now they have 150 missiles, that Hezbollah has. So it's like so many more than what they had before. And now, because Iran is getting difficult to bring the weapons, now they are making factories in Lebanon. And if you remember a few months ago, there was some again, it was found out, and there was some reporters who reported on that. And then Lebanon let some reporters going in Lebanon. It was close to the Beirut, the airport of Beirut. But they didn't show them exactly what was happening, and they couldn't. It's like a bit like Gaza, who bringing some reporters somewhere, and they are not really bringing them where is the very important thing. So it didn't really happen.
So there's activities that are happening which are hidden.
Yes,
so
a lot.
You have to tell our lovely viewers.
Not only that, there is now factories of missiles. Now, before, the missiles were sent for the first and the second Lebanon war, against Israel, was not very good missiles. They weren't targeting
accurately.
Exactly. But now Iran is much more, they do much more sophisticated missiles. So Israel know that the missiles are very important. Now, I'm saying all of that because, again, we can see it also with the Bible, with Ezekiel 38 and 39. And in 38 is written, and we read that already a few times ago, but I want to speak again about it because it's like really about missiles. And Israel know that now is not so much like the army coming, but it's more the missiles coming. Now, if you have to remember again, during the first Lebanon war and the second Lebanon war, Israel didn't have Iron Dome. And now the Iron Dome don't get all the missiles.
You have to explain what the Iron Dome is, because you're wondering at home what the Iron Dome is.
It's to protect the civilians, to protect the people in Israel. So when a missile is sent, anti-missile.
Yeah.
So when a missile is sent, there is this Iron Dome who are going to catch it in the sky, destroy it so it doesn't go where it is. Now, obviously, they are not going to do all of them. Some are falling in field, so they are not going to catch this one. It's very sophisticated. So when they know that one rocket is going in a very important place, they will catch it. But if it goes into a field, they won't go to catch it because it's a lot of money. And they can't always catch them all the time. So
shoot them down.
Yeah, shoot them down. So there is all these things going together. But again, if we want to look also with the Bible and where we are at, a lot of people start to speak more and more about Gog and Magog. We know that we are coming to this time, and this war will be to bring the Messianic era. So it's like something very important. Again, I like to say that it will depend very much of how we pray, how we move on with God. It can be very quick, or it can be like some Jewish people say, 12 minutes. I don't know. It's like a lot of people have different ideas, but some Jewish sages say it could be just 12 minutes. or it can be more. I don't know. But like we need to know that is something, it will be a fast war because of what's happening now in the world with the missile and all of that. You know, it's like things are going much faster than it was before. But what I wanted to say in Ezekiel chapter 38, this is what is written. You will advance. So it's like the enemies of Israel. You will advance, coming like a storm. You shall be like a cloud covering the earth, you and all your cohorts and the many peoples with you. So it's interesting. It's like coming like a storm, fast, but it's like also like a cloud. And it's like on verse 9, but you have again in the verse 16, they are going saying, and you will advance upon my people Israel like a cloud covering the earth. This will happen on that distant day. I will bring you in my land that the nations may know me, that the nations may know me when before their eyes I manifest my holiness through you, O Gog. So this last war is really for God to show things to the world. And when you read again in Ezekiel 39...
Which is interesting because when they were firing the missiles from Gaza recently, they were like clouds in a way. They were.
Yeah.
I've never seen them like that. They were together.
Yeah.
More than they before. It's one individual rocket they would fire, and that would be it. But this was like
few together.
There was a few. There was a lot together. No, there was a lot together.
Yeah. But you know why they do that? Because they know that the Iron Dome has to pick them. So more missiles they send together, more is difficult for the Iron Dome to get them all. So they are hoping that, you know, some will go. So it's what's happening. You know, it's like a lot of strategy and a lot of things. But again, and I was just reading the same verse today, and again, this war is a war for God to manifest himself. So again, we'll read it in English. I will make my, this is in Ezekiel 39 and it's verse 7. I will make my holy name known among my people Israel. So again, there is something for the nations, but also for the people of Israel. And never again will I let my holy name be profane. Okay, so it's like, it's something who has to do directly with God. And the nations shall know that I, Hashem, am holy in Israel, be Israel. And this, in Israel, be Israel, is the only time when it's written in the Bible. Usually it's like about or for Israel, but this time it's like God saying, hey, look, you know, focus. This is what I'm doing for my people in Israel. So it's just amazing.
Now, today you brought on the program, you've got your books.
Yeah, and in a way, it's interesting that you say that. Because
2 books, actually, I can see.
Yeah, you're right. Because we are speaking about this thing, we're like, oh my gosh, there is so many things happening and this is terrible. But no, this is part of God's, we are coming into the Messianic time, and we spoke about redemption already. So this is part of his thing. I was like, but what can I do? You can do things. So you can pray for the peace of Israel. You can pray for the IDF. You can pray for the prime minister because he has so many things on his shoulders and is so important. And you can start also to learn Hebrew. Because if you remember, the Hebrew language was the first language. God created the heaven and the earth with the Hebrew language. And on the earth, Adam and Eve and all the people at the beginning till Genesis 11, they were speaking in Hebrew. And so for us, and we are speaking about it in the Hebrew segments, funny enough, exactly about that, God is reversing. We are speaking many languages, but to serve him is like there is something special to do it in Hebrew. And I think for us to get ready for this Messianic time, learning Hebrew is something very special. So I just done, it's a very simple book, just introduction, saying this is the beauty.
But that's the French one, isn't it?
This is the French one. We did it in English first, and you're right, now it's for the French people, and I'm working on the German one. A friend of mine did it in German.
You want to get this book, so how did they get the book?
You just go on our website, and you can find it, and you can just, like with PayPal, you can just buy it, and we dispatch it all around the world. And if you do it, I will still sign it and put your name in it, because I know it's special that we can connect together, and like you connect with Israel and what's happening here. And like this is the thing that you can do when all these things happening in Israel. We need to get ready. And like speaking is called Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, because
holy
there is
tongue.
something, yeah. And again, you can see the mind of God slowly, slowly. I know it's difficult, but slowly, slowly, when you start to read the Bible in Hebrew, there is thing that God can speak directly through it, and it's like, He just changed your life.
Now, is this a hard book to read? Is it?
No, it's just, I just start very slowly, give, like the Hebrew was the first language, and we go through things, and then I speak about the letters, and giving a bit of understanding of the letters, and then the people can, learn more. But this is really
It's an introduction, really.
Introduction, yeah.
Well, one of the things that's been happening in Israel is they've had the second Christian Media Summit, and talking about some of the amazing developments we talk about on the program, Jewish Christian relations, and this is part of that, and it's
officially.
It's the headlines of the Jerusalem Post. You can see the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the Christian Media Summit 2018, and it's the second time that they've had a Christian Media Summit, bringing Christian media professionals from around the world to Jerusalem to listen to not just the Prime Minister, but also the President and many experts on different fields. And it was a privilege for Natalie and myself to be there on your behalf. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, thanked the Christian community for their support of Israel. And another very exciting development is that in response to a question regarding having a media emissary from the Israeli government for the Christian world, he says, Netanyahu said he's in a position to appoint for the first time a Christian emissary on behalf of the Israeli government to the Christian world. And he says he's going to do that. And so very exciting developments. And we've even got a very short clip, and let's listen to what Netanyahu had to say.
Israel is the one country that protects the human rights of all. We protect the religious sides of all. We don't just protect Christian religious side, we protect Christian people. Christians should enjoy all the freedom to worship as they please in the Middle East and anywhere else, and the only place in the Middle East where they can do so is Israel. We have no better friends in the world than our Christian friends, and I take this opportunity to thank you for your steadfast support. You are standing up for Israel, and you're standing up for the truth, and we stand up for you.
Well, that was very exciting to see the Prime Minister who was there. We were there in the hall with all the Christian media professionals, saying how important the Christian community is to Israel. Very, very exciting. Well, one of the things we wanted to say, Natalie and I, is thank you so much for your support of the program. It's because of your support that we're able to do this. Don't forget, there's also the Facebook page we've got, Natalie, where you can get usually we try to do a daily news story on Facebook. We've also got the website, a lot of information if you want to know about the programs, and also the YouTube channel. They can go to YouTube, the Israel First television program on YouTube, and catch up with the programs that you've missed. So maybe you've watched a program, you're saying, I really want to see that program. I missed it, Martin. How do I get that? Well, you can go to the YouTube channel. Your support of the program is what is the fuel, is the engine of us being here in Israel, able to bring news and interviews from the land of Israel. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today on this special Israel First update, and we'll be back right after this.
Shalom, my friends. Do you remember we carry on looking at the name Geula, which is redemption? We look at the Hebrew language was revived in the 19th century, at the end of the 19th century, by the Jewish people. They use it. It was in the Ulpan schools when Israel was re-established as a nation. Now is the Israel national language. But now there is a new phenomena, and it's like it's coming for the nations. There is people all around who wants to learn Hebrew. Why is it like that? We can look. It's written in a prophecy, Zephaniah 3:9, and it's written, "For then I will make the people pure of speech, so that they will evoke Adonai by name and serve him with one accord." Now, when we look in Hebrew, it's very interesting. Let us read it. Ki az epor el amim, safav rucha, likro kulam beshem Yehovah, leavdo shechem erad. Now, I want especially to look at the name Epor, okay? In Hebrew, ki az epor el amim, in English, it's like, I will make the people pure of language. But in Hebrew, is reverse. So God is going to reverse, He's going to give us again this Hebrew language, which means that we had it before. We lost it and we have it again. Now you remember the Bible was translated in Greek, then it was translated in other languages, and every time that is translated, you lose something. It's like, you know how it is with languages. We don't say the same way the things, and like when we see the Hebrew language is bringing the mind of God much clearer, and it's a joy, I tell you, to know more and more Hebrew, and it's what's happening, and it's because of that we are doing the program, just to give a taste of that. So we look today at this amazing verse, which is Ki az epor el amim, that then I will make the people. God is going to give us again this amazing language, and that is what's happening in front of our eyes during our generation. So we'll see you next week. Bye.
Great to be with you today, bringing you news and interviews from the land of Israel. We love to receive your emails. You can email us at info@israelfirst.org. Visit the website www.israelfirst.org, and remember, we're the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.